All right, this is Jack from teachingeslonline.com, and welcome to this video where I'm going to go over how I got 34,200 downloads in the first 3 months of my podcast. And I'm going to give you lots of tips as well about how to start your own podcast. Now, I've created a little keynote presentation for you, and you can see me in the bottom corner here. So we're just going to go through this. I want to start with why I started a podcast. I'm going to share 2 pictures with you. So just as a little bit of a background, I have a channel called To Fluency, a brand called To Fluency. And this is, I give language lessons to English language learners. And I do this through my YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, and on my website. Now, I have been meaning to start a podcast for a while, and I finally got round to it in April. And I'm going to share why I started. There's a couple of very important slides coming up, which really amazed me when I first saw them, or when I realized the impact of them. I'm going to talk about the 3 things that you need to get started, and also my top tips and how I got these downloads. So look at this on your screen now. This is interesting. This is from my YouTube channel, like I said. And yeah, this is a podcast I made. You can see the link at the bottom of this saying tofluency.com/new idea. So I thought about doing a pilot episode to say, all right, let's see how this is received. And you can see the date as well in the bottom left corner. Hopefully you can make this out, or is my picture in the way? Let's move this over here and move this up there. Now you can see it. Okay, so I did this in October 11th, 2017. And look at those views. Look at those views. 1.25 million views. So 1.25 million views from this podcast. And this is an audio only video. So video with just that picture and my voice over the top. And all I did was talk about my daily routine. I just say I wake up at this time, then I do this. In the past, I used to do that, etc. I had subtitles with it. The title is quite simple, but it got 1.25 million views. So that's when I first started thinking, okay, there's something here with this. And then the other thing that I noticed was this. I also did a conversation with my wife where we talked about Thanksgiving, and I put this on my YouTube channel. It did okay on YouTube, and then I put it on SoundCloud, and it got, well, so far it's had 107,000 listens. And this is one of the things where I wasn't really receiving any updates from SoundCloud. I wasn't following the stats, but I was noticing when I logged in years later, wow, it's had over 100,000 downloads. And then the next one, Learn English Through Stories, First Date Disaster, 20,000. And Learn English Through Stories, The Wallet, 16,000. And again, this wasn't something I was really putting out there at all. I just uploaded it to SoundCloud, and people found it on that platform. So I was pretty amazed by it all. Quite shocked what was happening. So over the years, I've thought, okay, I need to start a podcast, and I need to do this. And then what I started doing this year was creating those audio only lessons for YouTube. So I created more kind of lessons for YouTube where I was just speaking over a picture. No visuals, nothing like that. And those were getting great views. Like one recent one is close to 200,000 views now. And again, it just made me realize, okay, there is this market there for audio only lessons. So what I did was I started researching how to start a podcast. And to be honest, I didn't go deep into the research. I did a little bit of research in the past, found a few different apps, and thought, okay, I'm just going to go with this one and try and work it out myself. In the past, I've looked at things like Libsyn and I got very confused by it. I wasn't quite sure how it all worked, and it was $35 a month, and I didn't really want to spend that on something that I wasn't really sure I was going to be consistent with. But then recently I thought, okay, let's just do it. Let's try it. I'll record 2 a week to begin with, and then 1 a week after that. And the other big reason why I started is because the creation of audio only content is so much easier than video. When I make a video for English learners, it usually takes me 4 hours if it's a polished video, where I write the script, record, do different takes, have to set everything up, then do the edits in Final Cut Pro and put the text on screen, all those types of things. When it's audio, it's much easier to edit, but also I find it a lot easier just to produce. The 2 types of content I like producing the most: live, like this, and audio. So it helped me overcome that barrier to create new content, and it was a lot easier to do. So what we're going to do now is go back to this and then talk about, I've got far too many things open, talk about what you need to start a podcast. I'm just going to double check you can see all this. Yep. Let's move this around a little bit. That's better, isn't it? So the first one, a podcast host. This is where they're going to host your RSS feed, and this is where you're going to upload your audio content and the description. Then what happens here is, I'll just give a quick overview. Then they send this out, or the different podcast apps, they pick up this RSS feed, and then they put your episodes on their app. The next thing you need is recording equipment. Hello, microphone. And recording software. So we'll just go into each one of these briefly. So again, the podcast RSS. Think of this as a place where like a website is hosted, but in this case it's audio. So they're going to host your audio for you. When I first started looking at a podcast host in 2017, 2016, when I was thinking about doing one, I think Libsyn was the only one that people recommended. And I remember logging into them thinking, this is very confusing. Very, very confusing. It probably wasn't in a way, but the interface wasn't very user friendly. Now, there are a bunch of different podcast hosts. Some are free, some are paid. The free ones seem to work fine. I don't see a reason why you shouldn't use them. The paid ones, they do have extra features. And for example, the one I'm using is called Spreaker. Now, if you want to use Spreaker, use my affiliate link in the description. I haven't been accepted to the affiliate program yet, so clicking through now, I won't get any commission. But if you're watching this after the fact, and fingers crossed, if they accept me, then I might receive a little commission for that. But I chose Spreaker for 2 main reasons. Firstly, or 3 reasons. Firstly, the interface seemed easy. So when you're using the app, it's just really easy to use. And you can, there's an app for your phone, but I just use it on desktop. So you can go in there, step-by-step instructions. This is your podcast. This is the name. This is your artwork. It's all very simple, to be honest. Choose a name, choose your artwork, have a description, choose the categories. I don't think there's much else more than that. And then you upload the episodes. Again, very simple. Click here. Here's your description. Here's your title. Click publish. It goes out to the podcast apps. I just love how easy it is to use. The second reason why I used it is because I want to try and monetize the podcast as much as possible. And Spreaker have the equivalent of Google I always forget which one it is, Google AdSense, where you can select time slots on your video on YouTube before and after, and Google do all that for you. You know, they'll just insert ads from people automatically. And Spreaker have that option too. But it also allows you to insert your own ads in there as well if you want to. There's no competing agreement, which is, I mean, look at the fine print, I'm pretty sure about that. But that's what I wanted to do, because I wanted to try and earn money from the podcast, because in the past it was all about having to spend money on the podcast. And the third reason was I reached out to them. I said, I've got a large brand on YouTube. What can you do for me? And then they have this special program that I got accepted into, and they helped me get set up. They're going to help me promote it, and I get some perks as well. Now, the other thing with Spreaker, it might depend on the account, but you can have various podcasts under the same account. And I'm going to create more podcasts because I like this type of content creation. I'm doing this live in case you're watching the replay, and Cambridge English teacher Rory says that he's sunbathing right now, which is fantastic, in Cambridge, in fact. Okay, so that's the podcast RSS. Just think of this as a way to have an account, you upload your episodes, and then what you do is you submit these episodes to Apple and Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., and then they'll pick up that podcast. Now, I'm going to talk about what you need to do in addition to that later, a little extra tip for you. The next thing you need is equipment, recording equipment. Some of the free podcast apps now, they have a recorder built into your phone. So you can just get a little microphone, plug it in, and just record it on your phone. So you can bypass all those steps. And I quite like this idea. There's this idea with podcast and video production that it's going in both ways, where people like the polished effect of a good mic, good editing software, clean video. But also there's that other side to it where things are a little bit more raw, where people are filming videos in portrait mode on their phone for stories, for reels, TikTok, etc. And I think this is also happening for podcasts as well, where people are just expecting just more raw audio, where a bit of background noise, where it's not the professional standard microphone. It's going in both directions. I prefer to do it with this and have good audio quality, but the option is there. So the equipment is quite strange, because it's going in both of those directions, I feel. But what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description to the equipment that I recommend for making videos, and also for audio equipment as well. I include a, my wife is calling me every time I'm live. It's amazing. But what was I saying? Yeah, I also have stuff like how to use a microphone on your phone, the microphone you need for here, etc. Equipment thing, I think like always, just start smaller and get stuff if you need it. This microphone is quite expensive. You need a mixer and like a booster. All in, we're looking at, $600 for this, so it's quite a lot. But there are other microphones that I like as well. I wish I could reach my other one. It's around $100, works fine too. And also think about if you want the USB one versus XLR. Maybe go for the USB to begin with, because you can just plug it into your computer and go. Now the next one is recording software. Again, it's a lot easier these days, the recording software, because what we have here is free stuff like, if you've got a Mac, GarageBand or Audacity. I actually use 3 when I'm recording. It's a little long story. I'll try and make it short. But I used to record on Audacity, but then for whatever reason, it doesn't allow me to record anymore. So now I record on GarageBand or GarageBand, export it into Audacity, do the noise reduction, and then my wife's texting me. And then I put that into Final Cut Pro. Now, the reason I do it in Final Cut Pro is because I like the audio software in there. I have some settings I've been using for a long time, so I just copy and paste those settings. But also, I put it into a video format by doing the image and put it on YouTube too. So recording software, free stuff. You can just record it. A couple of tips here. If you make a mistake, leave a long pause and then go again. Because when you're editing or when you're recording, you want to make it easier for you to edit afterwards. So what you do is you can see the little waveforms on your computer. And if there's a long gap, you know you've made a mistake. And I also edit from back to front. So I start at the end, because if I try to say something a few times, then I'll be cutting it, going to the beginning, and like, oh, I made a mistake there. So you can go back to the beginning of a part of a long waveform to know, all right, this is a section that's good. And then there's a little short section, you know, okay, I messed up twice there. And in your head, you remember it in a way. But it's just something you'll get used to. And use short keys to make it easier as well. So that's what you need. I just wanted to keep that short and sweet because I didn't want to overcomplicate it. And also, when I started the podcast, I had done research in the past, but I just went for it. I just thought, okay, I can work this out. Audio, upload it, RSS feed, etc. Now, look at the screen here. Maybe I need to move my face again. Oh, okay. And I move my face over here. Whee! Over here we go. Let's go how I got 34,294 downloads in 3 months. So like I said, I started this, it's probably less than 3 months. I started this at sometime in April. And you can see the good news here. April, we had so many downloads. It increased for May, and then it increased again for June. And what I'm seeing is each new episode is getting more traction. And I'll talk about that in the tips soon. But this is good. This is nice. I love stats. I love numbers. I think this is it's probably what I expected at this stage. Because what's happening is I have a new form of content. I'm new on iTunes, on Spotify, on Spreaker, on Google Podcasts, on Castbox. There are so many podcast apps, by the way. But I'm new on all these platforms. So it's going to take me time to have to go up in the charts, to come up on people's feeds when they're searching or when they're browsing for new podcasts. But this is improving all the time. And I'm seeing some stats in certain countries where I am getting in the top 20 for language learning, for example. But I wanted to go over a few things of how I got these downloads. I'm going to have to move myself again, aren't I? All right, let's go all the way over here. And then I'm going to move this down a little bit because I'm a perfectionist. 5 things here. Okay, the first one is big. My email list and social media. So email list and social media is number 1, and it's number 1 for a reason. Because if you know me, I've been talking about the importance of building an audience and especially an email list for a long time. And when I released the podcast, I waited for a few episodes and sent it out to my email list, and I saw a big boost. It's never quite as big as you expect, because people aren't just going to, the first email they see, go, oh, Jack's got a podcast, got to download it now, got to subscribe now. You know what it's like. People receive an email on the phone, they're out with friends, like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, I missed that. Okay, forget about it. You have to constantly remind people to do it. So what I like to do, here's a little tip, is to say, the next time you're on your podcast app, search for my podcast. I just love this reminder. The next time you're on YouTube, find my video on YouTube. Search for Tough Fluency. The next time you're on Instagram, look for Tofluency on Instagram. Just this little reminder where the next time they actually do go on the app, then they might remember this and do what you wanted them to do. But I also leave links to the specific podcast episodes and to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I also put it on my blog post as well to say, okay, this is where you can find my different find my podcasts and different apps. But the email list is huge, massive, so important. Social media too. So when I'm on Instagram on a story, I'll say, hey, I've got a new podcast episode. The next time you're on Apple Podcasts, go check it out. So having this audience already just makes things so much easier. And this is obviously a big reason why I've got over 30,000 downloads so far. And that's why it's so important. Now, if you want to learn about email marketing, there's a link in the description to a free course that I have. I'm trying to not sound too salesy, but it shouldn't be free, this course. But I've made it free. And I'll tell you how I benefit, because I have affiliate links in there in the course. And if you sign up to my favorite email software, then I get a commission on this. And it's part of a long-term strategy for my teaching business to get more long-term affiliate sales. So take that course, learn from it, implement the steps, and use my links. Link in the description. Number 2, a weekly show. A weekly show. This is quite hard for me sometimes. I'm always a little bit more where I like to create content when I feel like creating content, but consistency is key. Having this weekly show is so important. And in fact, when we'll talk about this later, but when you go into the Apple Podcast settings, it asks you, how often are you making this podcast? Is it weekly, twice a week, once a month? So they want you to be consistent with it, and your audience wants you to be consistent as well. So now I release a new episode every Thursday. I'm going to talk later about how this connects with YouTube and if I do the same on both platforms or not. But yeah, weekly show, consistency is so important. Number 3, I think this is important as well. I used a concept that was already popular. So going back to this bad boy, you can see here, it's a 16-minute episode. And it's me just talking about daily routine. And the concept is where I talk about something, but then give micro lessons when something interesting comes up, when it's time to talk about something interesting. So this is the concept that was already popular. So I knew that it was going to work. I knew it was going to work. Getting your concept can be quite difficult, and you can change at times. I'm going to talk about how I might mix up this concept later on in things to try for the next stage. But this concept for me was great. I already knew how to do it. I found it easy to create and record. And I already had some episodes that I could already upload too. Number 4 is to remind people to search for me. I talked about that before, but just say, search for me, Tofluency. Talk about it a lot so that people are going on the app and actually searching for the podcast, which I think really helps with rankings, or at least it does with Google rankings, and I imagine podcast apps are the same. And then number 5 is momentum. So as you saw before, we are building up downloads every month. We're building on what we already have. And the key to momentum is consistency, to consistently do things so that you actually earn that momentum. Because you're never going to earn momentum if you record a few episodes and then stop for a while. And also just a little note on this as well. What I'm planning on doing is getting ahead with the podcast episode so that it's easy for me to stay consistent. So I can record a few episodes one week and then I'm 4 weeks ahead, and all is good with the world. Now here's some things I'm going to try. Try it out. Here's some things I'm going to try. Advertising. Maybe. I'm going to say maybe on this one. I did try a little bit of advertising when I first started the show, but it was costing me too much money. It was like $5 a click. And obviously, I didn't really stick it out and do what I normally do with advertising, which is try something, low budget, implement it, do tests, make sure things are working, etc. So that's something I might try again, but the momentum is building anyway. Number 2, guests. To have guests on the podcast. Most popular podcasts have guests on there, and this works for a few reasons. You have a different person on there, so it's something different, but also what happens is they share the episode with their audience, right? So they'll come on your show, the host will say, okay, here's the episode, feel free to share it, and they want to share this episode. So then you get listeners from their brand and then build that up. So I will try guests at one time. And what I can do is keep to my regular concept, but then add in bonus episodes maybe. Number 3 is to do blog posts for each one. This is something that I think helped build my YouTube channel, because when I created a YouTube video in the past, I would then take that YouTube video, put it on my blog post, and then write a summary. So it's like repurposing content really. But then because my website's already quite popular, if I create a new post, it's likely to get some traction and get ranked somewhere in the rankings. And then people will find my podcast that way. Number 4 is I'm going to reach out to Spreaker and say, hey, thanks for helping me get set up. Like, can we promote this podcast? What can we do to market it? What can we do to do different things to really improve it? That's what I'd like to do next, and I'm going to do it very soon. We also have, is this right? Q code. I'm just going to, for some reason that doesn't make sense to me. QR code. QR. Not Q. I'm going to change that right now. You can't see that. QR code. I like this. I like this idea. What I want to do is create like a leaflet for the podcast with a QR code. And the QR code is going to go straight to the podcast app or whatever, whichever one I want to use. It's like listen on Spotify, listen on Spreaker. And I have a little leaflet saying like, Learn English with Jack podcast, my picture. And then I pay people in cities around the world to go hand them out. Need to make sure everything's done, in the correct way. And just to get that different type of feel, because this is the way I used to get lessons online privately when I was teaching in Spain. So I'd say, I put leaflets around the city, people would give me a call, and then we'd go from there. So I want to try that idea out. I had a little look on Fiverr before, but I couldn't really find anything. So if you can do this, let me know. Get in touch with me. Number 6 is premium podcasts. This is something that's really becoming a big thing now, where different platforms now have premium content where it's a membership or you get access to bonus episodes. That's what I might do on with the different conversations and guests, to have that. That's a good idea, actually. The thing is with Apple is they want you to pay for it. They want you to pay like $15 a month, $30 a month just to have access to the premium podcasts, to be able to offer premium podcasts. So I think that's when audiences get a lot bigger. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. So premium podcasts, that's going to change in the future. Right now I'm working on my YouTube premium, where I'm offering premium lessons on YouTube or bonus lessons for members. And that's really picking up momentum now. So I've nearly reached my first goal of how many members I want. And then that'll just give me that idea of, all right, it seems like YouTube are pushing this at the same time as I'm pushing it to my audience. And it's working pretty well. But let's look at other quick tips, helpful tips. First one, claim your podcast on the apps. So once you do your QR code and all that kind of stuff, once you do your RSS feed and then you send it out to the different places, I'm just going to move this down so you can read that. Then you can go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and claim your podcast, where they'll send out an email to the email on the RSS feed that's linked to your podcast account. I hope this makes sense. And then you say, yeah, this is me, I'm claiming it. So use the same email. And once you do that, then you can just change certain things and settings for that specific podcast, and also do stuff like premium podcasts and to tell Apple, okay, I'm doing this weekly, so, help me out here. And yeah, so you can claim your podcast on those different apps. Number 2, send people to the most popular apps. So when I was talking about email marketing before, you can say, I've got a new podcast episode, listen here on Spotify, listen here on Apple. And with Spreaker, I love stats and I find them interesting. So if I click on sources, in June, we had 1,400 on Google Podcasts, 3,700 on Spotify, and 6,200 on Apple Podcasts. And then there were some other things like Castbox. Wow, 1,000 on my website. It's good to know that, actually. It's really good to know. 1,000 on my website. Okay, great. Apple Music, 591. Interesting. But you see here, it tells you where people are listening. Spotify has surprised me in a big way. I didn't realize how many people listen to podcasts on Spotify. But you can also, just to talk about other stats, you can also look at devices. Shockingly, the phone is now 87% and desktop is 9%. I remember looking at things like stats in the past where desktop used to be 90% of website visits and like 80% YouTube views. Completely changed now, as we all know. Spreaker also have geolocation. So Brazil is my number 1 country, then Thailand, Japan, United Kingdom, India, Russia, Italy, Spain, Turkey, France, etc. United States is number 11. Anyway, I'm getting off topic a little bit here. So yeah, send people to the most popular apps, and you can learn that which apps are popular in your settings. Tell people to leave reviews and share. Yeah. It does get a little bit boring on YouTube sometimes and podcasts. It's like, oh, subscribe, like, share, click the description, leave a review. But tell people to do it. Tell them it's really useful, and then you can read out the reviews. It makes people want to do it. I'm just going to read out the 5-star review from Shayna in Brazil, who says this is the best podcast I've ever listened to, etc. Number 4, fancy music isn't necessary. Because I find it annoying when it's like, bringing you the best tips in online marketing. The Marketing Current Today show. Whether, you get that voiceover, it's like, and like truth bombs and knowledge bombs dropping everywhere. I started with music, but then I just took it off. I just go straight into it. No music. I go back and forth with music because sometimes I come across a channel I haven't watched in a while, and the intro music it gives you that memory of the channel. It gives you that emotion about the channel and that connection. So yeah, I'm back and forth about that, but I'm just saying it's not necessary. Number 5, put it on YouTube. Put it on YouTube. I'm just amazed. Like, again, some of my most popular recent videos, I can't go into my channel stats because I'm on this channel. They've all been podcast episodes, so it just shows how popular that they are. It's interesting, really interesting to me. But I think this long form audio content is really taking over now. It's really a big thing, isn't it? Okay, so what to do now? There's a little email icon there, which means you should go into the description and get my email marketing course. So this is free to take if you do it in 5 days. I put a little timer on it to say, look, if you want to do this, let's do it. Let's take action. Let's implement what I'm going to teach you. And I go through this step by step. You get a little PDF as well that you can download. You get the videos, the video content. You can buy it and keep the course, download it, and also get feedback from me for a very, very low price for what you get. But if you want to just do it for free, you've got 5 days to implement everything. So definitely check that out. So just in summary, let's have a look. You're going to need a podcast RSS. Do a bit of research on this one. Lots out there. The free ones, you can start free. I think you can easily transfer your RSS feed to a new one. I'm not sure exactly about the ins and outs of that. Like, are you going to get the same stats, etc. You're going to need some equipment. Start small. I mean, maybe go all in. If you got the budget for it, this mic's fantastic. But also know, one thing I didn't mention, the recording space. It was very noisy around here before. Luckily, it got quiet when I went live. And I've just moved into a new office. It's actually next door to the one I used to have. It's a lot bigger. It's nice. But it means it's echoey. It's a little bit echoey. The best place to record a podcast episode is if you have a walk-in closet. Because the audios, the acoustics in there are just fantastic. If you can just take your microphone, your computer, get a little chair, and just record in there, close the door. It's incredible acoustics. But you're also going to need recording software as well. So this is free. GarageBand, Audacity, 2 of the favorite ones that people use. How I got these downloads: email list and social media. Got to build that audience. Weekly show, stay consistent. A concept that was already popular. So think about the concepts you want to introduce and what kind of show you want to do. Remind people to search for you. It's like, come on, go find me on your app and build momentum. I'm also going to try advertising, bringing on guests, doing more blog posts, reaching out to Spreaker, QR codes around different cities, and premium podcasts. And then, yeah, like I say, claim your podcast on apps, send people to the most popular apps, tell people to leave reviews and share. Fancy music isn't necessary, and put it on YouTube. Put it on YouTube. You might want to create a new channel for this. So you just say, whatever the podcast is. You can do clips as well. Oof, that's a good one. I might start a new channel where I do clips of various stuff that we've done in the past. What a good idea. What a good idea. I might actually just do that now. All right. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. Leave them in the comment section below. And definitely check out the description for the equipment I recommend, the podcast app I use, and also the email marketing course. Get that email marketing course. So good. I think you're going to love it. Like I say, it's free. All right. Well, I'll leave it there. And I will follow up with this in a few months and say, how to get, hopefully, 1 million downloads on podcasts. Maybe that's my goal. July. 500,000 by the end of the year. Let's go for it. 500,000 by the end of the year. All right. With that in mind, got to get to work. Speak to you soon.